Now, this next story still focuses on monetary policy, but in a very different context. Unscrupulous characters have allegedly started to already print fake bond notes, which they then plan to release at the exact same time when Zimbabwe's central bank issues bond notes into the economy later this month. Now, despite these claims, the Reserve Bank has still rolled out a massive awareness campaign right ahead of the launch. The finance minister over there, Chinamasa, in fact, has said the ongoing nationwide public awareness campaigns are meant to empower the transacting public and to warn them to be wary against conmen. The initial deadline for the release of these bond notes was the end of October, but the Reserve Bank withheld the injection in order to extend campaigns and educate the public on the denominations of these bond notes and exactly how they will be working in practice. Let's expand this conversation and head over live to Harare, where Farai Moktua now joins us live from that location. Farai, of course, as we just mentioned, quite a few concerns there about a potential flood of counterfeit bond notes coming into the market around the same time as the RBZ ones. What more do we know about these concerns? Have we verified them in any way?
Well, Rama, beyond what's been reported, not much more detail. The finance minister told parliamentarians attending a pre-budget conference yesterday that they were unscrupulous people, as you say, printing these bond notes. He didn't go into detail in terms of who they are, whether they've been apprehended or not, or indeed where they found the template for these bond notes, as they haven't been released yet. But he did say that going forward, because of all the speculation surrounding these very controversial bond notes, the central bank and the finance ministry will now start keeping their cards very close to their chests and not announce any more information in terms of their roadmap, in terms of the launch. So not much detail in terms of the fake notes, but going forward, the central bank will remain tight-lipped.
Indeed. And so my next question puts you in a bit of a bind then. Do we have any firm dates yet on when these bond notes that actually hit the market?
Beyond what we've been told, which is the end by this month, at some point in this month, we'll certainly have them. And as you quite rightly said earlier, the central bank has embarked on a very intensive advertising and awareness campaign. They've been rolling out advertisements in the major publications every single day. They're on radio every hour. They're on television every hour, talking about these bond notes and how they'll work. At this stage, the campaign is mainly focusing on the rationale behind the bond notes. In the coming days and weeks, we expect that it will now focus on unveiling what the bond note actually looks like, its security features, the denominations, for instance, as you talk about. So certainly this month we'll have them. When exactly, I can't say at this stage, Rama.
Indeed. Let's focus on how they actually came into being, though. There's a fascinating story here. Why did the president decide to make these bond notes legal tender by decree instead of going through Parliament? ZANU-PF has a majority there. The fact that he avoided Parliament seems to imply that there was a risk of rejection by legislators, even in his own party.
Well, not necessarily. I think the president is empowered, according to the Constitution, to exercise his presidential powers as he's done now, as and when he chooses to, in the interest of the public and in where he deems that it is necessary because it's an emergency. And he'll say that that's why he's exercising those powers enshrined in the Constitution now. Taking it through Parliament would have required processes and steps, debating, for instance, for it to go to a vote, which may have delayed, the passing of these regulations. So I think in his own wisdom, deciding to go the quicker route, which gives him the ability to decree and make this an immediate, reality, as opposed to the parliamentary process. But he is entitled, he is empowered to do so under the Constitution, and so he's acting well within those constitutional rights.
Although the former finance minister, Tendai Biti, has argued that the legal maneuver that Mr. Mugabe employed could be challenged in court on the basis of the fact that this wasn't really an emergency per se. We've been talking about bond notes for months now. If there is a legal challenge, on what basis would it be made?
Well, Tendai Biti plans to launch an appeal in the courts, a challenge in the courts, and I understand he'll be filing his court papers very soon, challenging this action by the president. This is not the first time that bond notes have been challenged. Previously, former Vice President Joyce Mujuru challenged them, and another businessman has also mounted a challenge in the courts against bond notes. And Tendai Biti's argument now is saying, look, as you quite rightly said, it's not an emergency. We've known about bond notes since May, so it's not an emergency. The president shouldn't have decreed as he did and should have taken it through the processes of Parliament. Whether or not that challenge will succeed is unlikely, because the presidential powers override the Constitution. So the President, even if it is deemed that it is outside of the Constitution, those presidential powers override the Constitution. And if he's decreed that this is the way he wants to go, then he certainly has the power to do so, and it will most likely stand going forward.
Indeed, we'll leave it there for the time being. Thank you for that. That's Farai Mokutia live in Harare. It's a fascinating monetary policy experiment. There's certainly bound to be a few interesting theses coming out of Zimbabwe on that subject.